Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and we are coming to you from the virtual Business RadioX studio in Alpharetta. No, we're not in Renaissance Bank. We are virtual, but we still love Renaissance Bank, of course, and the folks there. They've done awesome work in compiling and disseminating information about the CARES Act and some of the loan and business assistance programs under that act. So be in touch with your Renaissance banker. Go to renaissancebank.com. If you want to visit the branch, you have to make an appointment. Drive-throughs are open, as banking is an essential business, of course. So check them out, renaissancebank.com, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I'd like to welcome Jim Fuhs. Jim is with Fuhsion Marketing, the best named business around. I love that name. Jim Fuhs, welcome.
Thank you, John, and it's an honor to be here. I'm glad we got to chat the other day. Had a virtual coffee, which was a lot of fun, and it was great to learn more about everything you're doing in the community right now to keep everybody's hope alive. And I really appreciate you giving me a chance to come on today.
Well, thank you. And I've got to say, it's April 3rd as we do this show. Happy birthday, Jim. Today's your birthday, so let's get it out there, right?
Yes, it is. That's right. The big 5-4, I'm almost at my senior citizen discount. So I think that's next year, right?
You're a baby, but we need to change the subject rapidly. That's the host prerogative. We're changing the subject. So for those that don't know you, tell them a little bit about you. Give them a little background on you.
Yeah, so I am a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel. Retired about actually going on 11 years. Retired in 2009, and I enlisted first, and then. Did crazy things like went to jump school, retired from Old Dominion University, and I graduated in '89, and then, went all over the world with the Marines and finished up at Camp Lejeune with the Marine Special Operations Command that I helped stand up. I was their money guy, and then about 3 years ago, funny story is I reconnected with a friend, a young lady I had met, and I say young at the time I met her, third grade, on Facebook, that we went to Catholic school together. And one thing led to another, and got married in October of 18 and moved to Marietta because that's where my wife lived. And she's got a nice job as a freelance court reporter. So she's all over the area listening to both good and bad things. So she's always secretly correcting my grammar. So gotta watch out for that.
You and I've got something in common. I'm married to a language arts teacher, so we're constantly getting corrected, both of us.
Yes.
Yeah. But first of all, thank you for your service. 20 years in the Marine Corps. That's awesome. Before we came on, you were telling me about you starting out at Parris Island.
Yes. Yeah, so sometimes I was thinking about this the other day, and I'll make a little light of the situation. So I had to sit in a place for 13 weeks where I wasn't allowed to touch my face and was told everything I had to do. So I think everybody else can maybe get a little discipline right now.
Right. I love that. You could make it. Right.
That's right.
Yeah. You don't have any patience for folks that can't
go outside.
Yeah. I hear you. Buckle up, folks. We're in this together. So buckle up.
All right.
So Jim, you after you left the Marine Corps, talk about your private sector career.
Yeah. So for the first few years, I was actually worked in the defense contractor arena. I worked for a couple different companies, mainly in procurement, and I was also a adjunct professor at Webster University in their procurement. I was teaching people about procurement, operational logistics, government contract pricing. But, sometimes, John, we do things that we're good at, but that we don't love. So I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I went into consulting once again in the government sector. And then, but I would always see these people talking about like, oh, I help people with their social media. And I'm a very analytical person. And I'd go look at what these people were doing for folks. It's like, you're getting paid for that? I can't do that. So I started doing social media full time about 4 years ago. I had a friend that he's still a client, an accounting firm. And, he was like my first customer. And we just came up with a plan, and, whether it was getting him straight on Google My Business or even creating a Facebook presence for him, because people look for stuff. And so I started, strictly doing more of the content creation. And then it's evolved. I started attending a conference in San Diego called Social Media Marketing World, which is one of the biggest in the country, if not the world. And I've actually been a volunteer there the last 2 years on what they call the Connections Crew, where we actually help people connect, which that's something I really enjoy doing. And I think you're the same way. That's once you understand in some aspects that, to me, success in life is really about helping other people.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's building that know, like, and trust. And, granted, not everybody's going to like me or like you, and that's okay. And I think that's one of the things is, as business owners and as people, we sometimes have to get over the fact is not everybody's going to like you. I mean, you learn that in the Marines too, right? Not everybody.
Right. You learned that on day one, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's been about 2 years ago. I actually had a lady that was had this Facebook group, and she did this Facebook Live challenge. So she forced us, as a guy, Brian Fanzo, who actually, he dates a young lady from the Atlanta area, Jennifer Watson, who was with the Weather Channel, says, press the damn button, get out there and go live, just like you do all the time with the podcast. And so I got over that fear of being live on video. And so one thing led to another. And by August of 2018, I was asked to co-host a show with a friend of mine now, Tim Sohn, who's actually out of Eastern Pennsylvania. And we started a show called The Tim and Jim Show. I know it's a really original name. And so we've been doing that every week since August of 2018. We're live Wednesdays at 12. And we interview people in all different aspects of not just marketing, but also even mindset. But with the goal is really to help small businesses and entrepreneurs learn something from experts in the field of the different aspects of marketing and mindset. And so that's been a lot of fun. Just like you, we have to get guests scheduled. And I've been happy that we've actually we're booked until August.
Look at you. Way to go.
We get out there and, and so that's part of what I have kind of really been pivoting to more is live video is really what I'm starting to find is my favorite thing to do. Cause like right now, right, we can sit here and talk and have a conversation. And, I know I need to become more of a blogger or repurpose my content. And so that's where, the cobbler doesn't have any shoes.
Right. Well, a couple things. Well, and we got to say, if you don't mind me saying this, see, you're about to jump into the podcasting world. So
yes.
Come on in. The water's warm, and you may drag me into the video world. So we'll drag each other, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I think there are a couple issues with social media I see with small businesses that I wish you would address, Jim. One is that everybody's got a Facebook account, so they think they're an expert, right? So there's one thing I wish you'd address. And then also the business owners that know they're not experts, how do they know someone is? Because there's no certifications per se. It's pretty easy to put out a shingle and say you're a social media consultant. if I'm a small business owner, how do I figure out who knows what?
Well, I think one thing you really need to ask some questions of them. I mean, first of all, if they're not asking you things like, what are your goals for your business? Why do you want to be on this platform? What type of content do you want to provide? Can you provide me content? Because I will tell you, as I'm sure you see all the time, people that just want to put up stock photos all the time, they're not getting anything. And even go look at even the person that says they want to do your social media, look at their page, right? Are they getting engagement? Are they even doing live video? My friend Jeff Sheehan, who I've become friends with here, and he's definitely a social media powerhouse. He's ranked in the top 100 in the world, I think, at times. He says that if you got somebody that says they do it all, he says, hold on to your wallet and run.
Right.
And that's why, I specifically focus on digital marketing. I don't do websites. I don't do Windows, but I know people that do that. And I think that's the one thing you have to be very upfront, because just like with what you do, right? You probably collaborate with people, but there's just no way either one of us has the bandwidth to do everything well. And that's that's what we used to joke about in the Marines sometimes, right? We become these generalist, jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
And I think that's what you have to watch out for. And even from the aspect of, and I've done a lot of small business workshops when I was in North Carolina. I'm going to be doing them virtually now for the small business centers at 3 of the colleges. Is why are you on the platform? And it may not be the right platform for you. There's a lot of, as I like to call them, visual businesses. They really probably need to be on Instagram as an example, and then you have to understand it's everything from the algorithms and they're always changing. And I know people that say they do social media for people that haven't changed how they've done stuff in 5 years. And when I look at the pages of the companies they're managing, and when I see post after post after post with no likes, no engagement, no sharing, that's a problem.
Right.
And, so and I get there's got to be a comfort level for the business, but ultimately, you've got to have a purpose behind being on any platform. Like even for someone to say, oh, I want to be on a podcast, or I want to be on a live show. Is it really what's the purpose? Is it to build your brand awareness? Is it the right audience? Right. I think the biggest thing is I would even ask the person, well, who do you think, who's your target audience? And if they can't help you identify that, then you're really not working with someone that knows what they're doing. I mean, there's a lot of great people out there. And I think, and I don't know if you ever run into this, I find it a little bit comical at times, is people say, well, aren't you worried about competition? And my answer is no, because there are so many people that need help with their marketing that I can't, and 2, I wouldn't want to service all of them because I wouldn't have enough time in the day. I think it goes back to relationship building and wanting to work with people that like, and trust. I don't believe in trying to steal people's clients. I mean, if somebody's going to come to me, that's one thing, but I'm not going to, go out and say, oh, I want to get this business from them because the person that's doing their marketing is horrible. They'll eventually figure it out. But it also ruins it sometimes for people that are good, because they'll say, well, I worked with this person and they burned me and I'm not going to spend money on my marketing. It's like, well, as you know, John, if you don't market, you're going to be in trouble. And we're seeing that right now. I was on a Zoom call the other day with this, I call it was a unintentional mini mastermind for about an hour. But one of the guys was a restaurant marketing expert. And what he talked about is the restaurants that kind of had laid the framework before all this happened. They had the text messaging list. They had the email list, right? We're not even talking about Facebook here. They had a way to communicate with their customers, are still managing to survive, and some even thrive. Where the ones that did none of this, they're either struggling or they've just gone ahead and closed the doors because they have no way to communicate, and now they can't figure out, and they don't have the money necessarily to figure out like, oh, now it's time for us to build an email list. Oh, now it's time for us to get opt-in text messaging so that we could say, hey guys, we can deliver to you tonight, and here's our special. And even, going back to some of the things that I think people could be doing right now, as an example, let's say you have a restaurant and you got a chef that's making some, really cool dish. Well, why not put that on Facebook Live?
Yeah.
People, hey guys, look what, Chef John's making tonight. And, we can get this delivered to you, just, and tell them how to get in touch with you. So many people, as I like to use, it's call it the so what factor.
Mm-hmm.
I read your social media post and you don't give me a call to action. So it's kind of like, okay, so what? What do you want me to do about this?
Right.
And too much of it is about them and not about adding value to their potential customers, let alone their customers. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short. When you post something, what value are you adding? I believe it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of your post should be adding value and 20% maybe selling it. And you might even argue right now that maybe that 20 is like 10 because of what's going on.
Yeah, I want to get into that here in a second, but I mean, I may have to have us take a break here and let me run around the room and celebrate what you just said, because I am such a believer in that, and I get maybe I get more irritated than I should, but seeing these sell, the guy that's obviously trying to win the steak knives with Alec Baldwin on Glenn Ross, right? And is not going to make the quota because they're so desperate, and it stinks of desperation, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely, and people see right through that. Right?
They do, and
I think if you come across as a desperate business, you're gonna find it hard to succeed. And I don't know if you know the Deej, Dan Jordan.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the Deej. He cracks me up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't believe in cold calling, but when I see how he actually talks to people,
mm-hmm.
you don't feel like you're in a cold call because he's actually having a conversation with them and just like, hey, if you don't want to have this conversation, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that approach, it's refreshing in a way, but I still argue that people don't like to answer their phone. I let mine go to voicemail most of the time.
Yeah.
But I think that, it still goes back to, you got to treat people like people and not think, and I even like, I don't know how many times you get this. I have a guy that connected with me on LinkedIn a couple months ago and sends me a message yesterday, like, hey, you got time next week to talk about how I can help you, find your target market? I was like, did I put something on my LinkedIn that said I'm looking for help?
Right.
And I think that's where I think the social media gets people a bad name, because it's like you connect with somebody and then they're trying to sell you. And it's about building relationships. And I think that's the way in, right? It's social, right? It's social media. It's
right.
Not social. I mean, I guess some people like to call it social selling, but people are going to ask when they need help, or even things as simple as, I may make a post in the next couple of days, hey, I've got room to talk to 3 people about helping them get started on live video. If you're interested, message me. That's my, I'm asking, but if nobody comes back to me, I'm not going to go back a day later and say, hey, how come nobody said anything?
Right. Exactly. And you see that all the time. That's, it's amazing to me. But anyway, folks, we're, if you just joined us, we're here with Jim Fuhs, Fuhsion Marketing, and, talking social media, and we're going to get into live streaming in just a second, because that's really where, you've really made an impact, for folks. But I do want to ask, how should our tone in marketing change? Because we're in unusual times. If that's not an understatement, I don't know what is. We're in times we've never seen before. No one's ever seen. How should our tone change in these really tough times and unusual times?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think we have to have empathy, because I think, as you know, all of us are in a different place financially speaking, and we can't expect that, especially with as an example, with the record number of unemployments going on right now, that people are necessarily going to have a ton of money to be spending on marketing. So one thing is, I think if we can give some stuff away, right, and genuinely give some stuff away that might help people, I think that's the best thing you can do. You see so many companies that are doing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's companies like Moz and STM Rush and even Agora Pulse giving away their courses for free right now, so people can go and learn some new skills if they want to.
Sure.
But even just doing a short video, giving some people some tips on something that they could do that, maybe you would normally charge for it, but the reality is some of these things that we do, whether it's talking about how to set up a Facebook page, for me it's not rocket science, but for some people it might seem like rocket science. But or even saying, hey, I'll help. I'll give you a 30-minute free call to help you with something.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if you truly give, once we get through all this, those people will remember those people that were truly generous without any ulterior motive. And I think that's the thing that I think, and it may bother you as well, is I know there's people doing things with an ulterior motive. And I think that you got to be genuine in wanting to help people in order for, to help everyone. Because, there's a lot of people hurting. I mean, we talked the other day, and one of the things I don't think people realize how many kids go home hungry, and especially now with this school stuff going on, what schools basically out for the summer other than going online, but these kids still need to eat. And now you've got families that are struggling even more because of the fact that the parents maybe have gotten laid off, or, and unemployment isn't like it's, you won the lottery. If you look at the numbers on what you get on unemployment, I mean, it just barely probably scratches the surface for what some of these families need. So I think being empathetic is extremely important. The other thing is we don't really know. I mean, I guess we call them the armchair quarterbacks, right? Miss football. Maybe he'll come back. Is, this is only going to last a couple more weeks. And we don't know, right? I don't have that crystal ball. And even if we say, I would probably, I guess, I don't know if you have a prediction, if it was the end of April, when the proverbial, detention gets lifted, but from the principal, we still have to, it's not like the next day everything is going to go back to normal. And I don't think it's ever going to go back to the way it was, right? And I know people call it the new normal. I think companies are going to see some things, right? You're going to see that, okay, we can do this remote work, right? So now that's going to have an impact maybe on some commercial spaces that now they got a company that doesn't want to rent all that space anymore. You've got some businesses that unfortunately are not going to reopen, right? This is just the nail in the coffin. And I will say this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, John. I think in one aspect, what this did is this is going to put some companies out of business that probably should have been out of business. And it's like their bad habits caught up to them when this happened. I mean, what do you think?
Well, now, first of all, I'm the host. I'm supposed to ask the questions. So you've violated a rule, pal. But no, seriously, I hate to say about make a statement like somebody deserves to go out of business, but there are people because there are folks that will go out of business and are going out of business that don't deserve, quote unquote, to go out of business. So let's just say that, and you and I know folks like that, but bad habits catch up with you, I think is maybe the way I would put it, right? That if all you're doing is pounding folks with old time messages, and all you're trying to do is selling, and you're thinking about yourself as opposed to understanding what people's needs are and trying to meet them in some way, it's a tough environment for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, let's get back to you answering, because you've got the answers. I don't. That's why I'm the host. See, I ask the questions. So, no, I want to get to your live streaming, because you as you mentioned when we were having our virtual coffee the other day, you have got some really interesting things going on, and how you're helping businesses right now in this quote unquote new normal. Talk about that. Talk about what we mean by live streaming for those that don't know. Mm-hmm.
Right. So live streaming is literally, and in fact, it's funny because sometimes people say, "Oh, you have a podcast," and I guess in a way it's like a visual podcast, but you're doing it live on the internet. And in the case of with the software I use, and also with the permissions I've received, I go live on Facebook, on my business or personal page, on LinkedIn, which is I've been told there's only about 2,000 people in the world that have that capability right now. So I feel fortunate. YouTube, or even Twitter. And you can go live on Instagram. But it's kind of like, I joke sometimes, people like live video because it's kind of like watching a reality TV show. You just don't know what's going to happen. But the idea behind it is, and that's probably why I asked you a question, is I interview people.
That's right. You can't help yourself, right?
Right. I can't help myself. I like to ask questions because it's always interesting, right? It's the Dale Carnegie thing.
Sure.
Right? Ask people about themselves and you learn a lot, right?
Right.
I mean, people don't always want to hear about us. So, so I appreciate you wanting to learn about me. But I think, so with the live streaming, as an example, Jeff Sheehan, a friend of mine, he's like, "Hey, we've got this doctor down in Houston that wants to talk about the hydrochloroquine. Can you bring him on?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." So basically I have my own TV channel. I didn't even realize it, that I can go live at any time. And so the LinkedIn has been really interesting because it's the B2B space, which is where I want to be. And I'm getting in front of business owners, business associates, and I'm getting to show them stuff that they might have an interest in. And a lot of times the interviews, it's not about me. It's about the guest and getting their message out, because they're usually an expert in something. I mean, I was, it was fun to bring. And in fact, that's how we initially connected, was Greg Burkhalter, the LinkedIn guy.
Yeah.
I interviewed him live on LinkedIn, and that was, they haven't even given him LinkedIn Live. So I got to interview the LinkedIn guy on LinkedIn Live. That was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Learned a lot about him.
That's awesome.
And so aside from the show, what we're doing with live video is I've been starting to interview folks in the local area, kind of like we're doing here, because I think it's important to get people's stories out there. Right. Because everybody wants to learn about folks. And like we talked about the other day, I'd love to have you and I just have a conversation on live video about what you do, so that I can ask the questions. But I think the other thing you can do with live video, the algorithms like live video more than recorded video. And so when you go live on a lot of these platforms, especially if you're following someone, you'll get a notification. And in fact, it's funny because sometimes I have people come up to me. You don't realize this, right? That you have what we call the social media stalkers. And I just read this book that came out recently from Neil Schaefer called The Age of Influence. 90% of people on social are not interacting, but they're watching you. So you'll have people come up to you and say, "Hey, I really liked your show." And you're like, "What?" But you didn't react, you didn't comment, but they're watching you. So it goes back to consistency. And I say that in social, just like with your podcast, right? You got to be consistent. If you said, "I'm going to take a month off," people think something happened. Like, "Oh, they must not be doing that anymore." And so by being consistent with the live video, I mean, even I tell small businesses, like, if they don't want to hire someone to do it, like, just get on your Facebook page once a week for maybe 5 minutes and say, hey, here's what's going on this week at, our bakery or our store.
Mm-hmm.
These are the specials we got coming up. We'd love to know how our community is doing, because live video lets you build a community, because people get to, it's not just the voice, but the fact that they get to see you and they can see your passion or lack thereof. And so it helps tell that story of what you got going on, but it also, right, because I can then actually, if I'm watching, I can like type a comment right there, and you could say, like, oh, hey, John, how you doing? Hope
Sure.
things are going well in your neck of the woods, and hope to see you again soon. And that helps build that connection. And then when you consider how close the person is to the screen they're usually watching, it's kind of an odd thing, but it almost starts to build that virtual connection that when you finally maybe see the person in real life, it's like you've known each other for years. And I've been amazed how much, as I like to call them, online connections for me, when I finally see the person in real life, it's like we've known each other forever. And so I think that's one of the other really cool things about live video. And if you're the face of the business, why wouldn't you want to be getting out there, or even getting your employees out there and, like, hey, this week we're going to talk to John about what he does for our company. So there's so many little things that you can do to, and I like to talk about the 4 E's of social media, right? You're educating, you're engaging, you're entertaining, and of course, now I'm going to forget the other E, and empowering your audience.
That's a good E, empowering. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, I always say, even with a video, right, give them a call to action. What do you want me to do after I watch this video? Right? You want me to share it, comment, tell us what you'd like us to talk about next week.
Right.
Because if we don't tell people what to do, it's like I always like to joke. It's the so what? Why did I just give you that 5, 10, 30 minutes of my life that I'll never get back?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Folks, we're speaking with Jim Fuhs, and he's with Fuhsion Marketing. Jim, you've got some compelling work that you're doing right now with live streaming. We talked before we came on about a Pilates business that you've really helped. I mean, obviously, fitness studios, businesses are going through a really tough time right now because of social distancing, but you've helped a particular business pretty nicely.
Yes.
Talk about that.
I have a friend, Stephanie Little of Club Pilates East Cobb, that she came to me a couple weeks ago when we were still allowed out, and she's like, "Hey, she actually did it a little earlier than some other places, where for the health and welfare of her clients, she's like, hey, I'm shutting the studio down because we don't want anyone to possibly get sick, because even if somebody was coughing, you just didn't know. And then, of course, as we know, even if someone's not exhibiting the symptoms, they could still be passing it on to people.
That's right.
And so anyway, she's like, I want to do some video, but I don't know what to do. I said, well, we got a couple options. I said, at that time we did a few where I came into the studio, we recorded it on the cell phone, and then I edited it, and then I sent her the videos, added a music track, and she uploaded them to YouTube. Well, now what we're doing, we're doing it live in the sense that I'm sitting right here in, my basement studio in Marietta, Georgia, and I'm using StreamYard, which is a program I like to use, and I'm sending the link to her and her instructors, and they basically come on into my studio, and they're like in the green room, and then we get everybody's camera angles set up right, and then we go live, but we're going unlisted on YouTube, so nobody can see us actually live. And I'm recording the workout sessions. After it's done, I'm downloading it, and then I'm doing an edit, to take out, the goofs and bloops that happen sometimes. And then I'm sending that track to Stephanie, and then she's sending the link to her studio folks or to her clients every day on an email. The other thing she's doing that I got her to do was every day, usually about 9:00, she's coming on live for a very short period of time. And she's sharing a video from one of her instructors. I think she's calling it like the Daily Beat or something. And she'll be like, hey guys, it's Stephanie. Hope everyone's doing well. And here's a message from, instructor Susie that's pre-recorded. So she's actually able to play that video with sound while she's live. And it's helping her stay connected with her community. And because she's doing it on her business page, it's also getting her business page some visibility. And I think the importance of this right now is you got to stay in touch with your community, because if you kind of disappear, everybody's got, right. It's the, we're all fighting for food, shelter, and I think what's the other one? Comfort right now. And so those become the basics. So if it's anything that I guess we call it a want versus a need, you could be on the chopping block for a family's finances right now. Right. So I think the community building is important. So that's one thing that I've done. The other thing I helped with the Kennesaw Business Association with Pete Kane is I've actually turned him into a StreamYard advocate, because we were going to do the Kennesaw Business Association University, where small businesses were going to come in once a week, learn some marketing skills, and I was going to do a session on live streaming. So what we had started to do was interview the folks that were going to be the presenters before all this happened. So now Pete's seen how the power of live video, now he can help his clients by, coming on, and he knows if he needs help, he can contact me if they get into something that's a little more complex, because there's so many little tricks you can do. And even a platform like Zoom has its purpose. And that becomes the other question of, you want to go live, but what is it you're trying to do? Are you just trying to have a meeting? If you don't want everyone to see it, right, you can create a Facebook group, and only the people in the group will see it. So that's the other area where I'm really looking to help guide people. I actually helped a lady who's a Mary Kay. Actually, she's like one of those folks that gets the pink Cadillac all the time. She asked me, how do I do a virtual presentation? And I said, well, there's a couple of ways. And actually the way we came up with, and I actually did a video on LinkedIn and Facebook the other day, is I call it a Zoom hack. So if you take your pro account as an example, and you have a second email, create another account, well, you can open that account up on your cell phone and, monitor it from your desktop. We'll put it on a tripod, use the back camera. Well, now you can be using that back camera to, as in her case, maybe have the demonstration of how to put on the makeup when somebody's sitting at a table. You now have enough angle that you can get everything in the picture. Because even like right now, when we're on a Zoom, where you're just seeing that small face. For Toastmasters, because they're getting ready to have contests, I can set it up on the tripod far enough away. And if I can get a lapel mic, and I use one that's 9 feet cord wise, I can talk and do a speech, and now you can see all my movements. The biggest problem is that people have to remember you don't have an audience, but you have to act like you have an audience. So for speech contest or presentations, that's a way that people can, kind of hack the system to do a better presentation, instead of feeling like, oh, I'm stuck into this sitting in front of the computer view. There are other ways to do it, but it's not something that people have always thought about.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So you mentioned that you're starting a podcast, and we want to promote that and let people know where they can find that. But I'm interested, as a video guy, why do you see the need to do a podcast? I mean, and what are the and that sounds like I'm trying to backhandedly promote us, and I'm not. What I'm getting to is how do you decide video versus audio, the live stream versus doing a podcast? How do you think through that, and how do you recommend that to people?
Well, one, I think people learn differently. And the podcast that we're creating is called Launch Your Live. And actually the website is launchyour.live.
Mm-hmm.
And and of course it's fascinating right now. A friend of mine, Chris Stone, who's a big, podcast producer, has been talking about that, a lot of people listen to podcasts when they're driving to work. Well, that's not happening as much, but they are seeing downloads more in the evening now. So people still are listening to podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of aspects, right, you have to be multi-channel. I mean, you guys are multi-channel, right? You're not just doing a podcast, you're also repurposing it to a website, blog
Mm-hmm.
post. You could be putting it out to email lists. And the power of audio, and hopefully you don't have one in your room here because she'll start speaking to you. There's a thing called Alexa. Alexa does what we call flash briefings, which are short audio clips.
Mm-hmm.
But even with a live video, I could take that audio out of the video, put it on there, and it could here's a highlight from the conversation we had with, like Bob Berg was on our show this summer.
Mm.
And if you want to watch the full video, go to our whatever channel, our YouTube channel or Facebook, whatever. So the audio can drive people to your video and vice versa, right? Because believe it or not, and this is where the technology is constantly evolving. I've been told that 80% of people watch the video with the sound off. So you almost have to get on YouTube because at least it has closed captioning built in,
Mm-hmm.
or you have to start captioning your videos at some point. Not to mention just even from an accessibility standpoint for those folks that aren't able to necessarily see and hear. But I think, people like to listen to stuff sometimes, right? They can listen while they're mowing the yard, or, maybe they're sitting at something that they don't want to listen to the people that are wherever they're at. So they just put an ear pod in and listen to something else.
That's
but
right.
I think I think in general, people, right, we love the sound of the human voice. And I think that ability to communicate, whether by audio or by visual, is important. And it's a step up from just the posting words and pictures, right? You just don't get all those senses. And even the difference between where you can hear the voice inflection, you can hear the pauses, and as our grammar queen women would say, the way you say things, words have meaning, right?
Yes.
And so that's where I think the audio, and I actually think there's going to continue to be a growth in audio. I don't think audio is anywhere near dead. In fact, I think Amazon is the sleeping giant in all this, and I don't think people realize what they're up to. I actually wonder. I bought one of those. I think it's called the Echo Show. It's like a little mini screen. I could see Amazon at some point starting to do more with video, and so you'll have flash videos, which I know sounds kind of weird, but you'll have short videos, or you could put that video clip on. It's like, hey, if you want to watch the full video, go to our wherever they're going to host it. So I think the video or the audio is extremely important. And it's fascinating because it's not that, to me, it's not that radio's dead. I think it's the reach and the fact that people don't necessarily like sometimes all the advertisements. That how do I get that audio message out? Because I think I told you the other day, I've done some high school soccer play-by-play in the past, and people loved it, especially if their kid was playing and they were, in some cases it was a Marine Corps town, and the dad was in California and he got to listen to his son's soccer game. So there's a lot to be said for that. And we can't always get the video aspect. So my Christian Karasevich and I we're launching a podcast, Launch Your Live, and it's about the story of what you need to do to launch a live stream. So, the podcast will bring on folks that are, established and successful live streamers to talk about their stories. Plus, we'll have episodes that'll be giving you tips and, because there's so many things, just like with what you do, right? It's everything from understanding where you have to look on the camera and what type of equipment you need. And, because I think with everything, it's like try to get better 1% every time in whatever you do, right? You're not going to do it all overnight. You're not going to have success overnight. I mean, I think where people get frustrated with social or even as podcasters or live streamers is like, well, I'm not getting a lot of views. Well, how long have you been doing it? Well, I've been doing it for a month.
Right.
Actually, it's funny, a lot of times they say it's a marathon, not a sprint. But then I heard somebody say, well, it's not even a marathon. It's a journey that never ends.
I like that.
To that 26.2 miles, you don't stop.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You run another one, right? Yeah. Right. I like that. That's really helpful, I think, for folks, to think about that and just getting started and being consistent. These are great messages. And, maybe this disruption gives people, some ways to rethink what they're doing and end bad habits, right? And start good habits. So, this has been awesome, Jim. You really got a lot of great things going, and I'd love to, get people engaged with you. So let's do that. Tell them how they can do that. Tell them where to connect with you.
I'm basically on all the socials, for the most part. I mean, I actually have a TikTok, but I haven't done much there. But I'm on LinkedIn under Jim Fuhs, and I also have a company page, Fuhsion Marketing. I'm on Twitter as well. Very active on Twitter. I'm actually part of a Twitter chat team called Twitter Smarter. That's every Thursday. Facebook, I have my personal page, as well as Fuhsion Marketing is out there, and on Instagram. But I would probably say I hang out the most, if that's a term, on social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter. And then, of course, I'll put in the show notes. I'll put my phone number out there that if people want to call. And if people want to schedule a 15-minute discovery call, I do have a Calendly link on my social media as well, and also even on my personal Facebook, that they want to have a conversation to see if maybe we're a good fit, or I can at least. And even when I'm not the right fit, I like to point people to folks that I've met. I've met a lot of great other marketing companies in the Atlanta area that might be a better fit for them, because I think I love helping people succeed. I think that's part of being a Marine. You want to help your people get better. Right. From being a sports coach, you want to see your kids get better and build self-confidence. So, I'm all about just helping people succeed. It's not. I think that's what we're all meant to do here on this planet.
Well, you can't say it any better. I can't think of a better way for us to close. Jim Fuhs, Fuhsion Marketing. It's been a pleasure to having you. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, John.
Folks, just a reminder, you can listen to this show every Tuesday morning live at 11:30, and we also have special shows like this one from time to time. But if you miss any of our live shows, you can find us on any of your favorite podcast apps. I've put the challenge out there. If you can find one that we're not on, let me know. But I have yet to anybody challenge me on that. Jim might, since he's so connected. But we're on Apple, Google, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify. We even post our podcast on YouTube for what that's worth. But we're out there all over the place. And we're also, of course, at North Fulton businessradio.com. You can find all our shows there. I think we're up to over 200 now. And you can also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, North Fulton BRX. So follow us there, like us. Please support the work that we're doing to get the good word out on businesses in our community. So for my guest, Jim Fuhs, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.